Welcome to the Limitless Leaders podcast. This is a show where my guests and I explore and expand on all things mindset, leadership, and communication. On the show, I interview inspiring leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all walks of life, where they share their stories, experiences, and lessons. This is a podcast for you if you're looking to learn, grow, and accelerate your life, career, and who you are. Hi, and welcome to the Limitless Leaders podcast, where we interview and share insights and stories from people all over the world doing so many different things. Super excited today to have someone that I absolutely admire and feel really proud to call a close friend, a kindred spirit, Jaquie Scammell. Jaquie is Australia's leading expert in customer service and is a sought-after speaker, coach, author, and founder of ServiceQ. ServiceQ help organizations take the leap from delivering ordinary service to extraordinary. They help service leaders reimagine service in their business and encourage them to start with looking at themselves first. And I know, Jaquie, you and the team have worked across a broader range of industries and sectors, all seeking to strengthen the relationships with those they serve. Jaquie's also a multi-time author of a book called Service Habits, Service Mindset, and now The Future of Service is 5D, recently winning a gold medal at the Able Book Awards in the Management and Leadership category. So welcome, Jaquie.
Thank you so much for having me, and hello to all of your wonderful listeners. So good to be here, Renee.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this, and I know we had to move it a few times, but we got there, and I'm sure everyone listening or watching is going to glean so much gold from today. So, Jaquie, I know you are so passionate about service and people being in service to others. What's a bit of your backstory and what led you to that passion and that obsession?
Well, Renee, you and I have shared a lot of our childhood experiences and memories together, and you may know from some of those stories that I had a real passion for acting and performing and being on the stage. And classic sliding door moment, when I graduated was, do I go to university and do a performing arts degree, or do I accept the management job at the local McDonald's?
Yeah, I love
it. And it's sort of like, it kind of started there, right? Like, yeah, I think at 17, 18 years of age, I already had a deep desire to work. I loved going to work. I couldn't wait to start working as a teenager. And I just loved team. I loved operations. I loved all the different unpredictable humans that would come through the drive-through and into the dining room. And so before I knew it, when I was faced with a life decision like university versus working at a local Macca's, I had already I had the bug, and I just fell into it, loved it. Clearly, I excelled in that environment of service because, I moved up that ladder pretty quickly. But, from McDonald's to major stadiums and events, my career really was all about serving large teams as a leader so that they could do their best to serve, in some cases, millions of customers when we talk about the Australian Open and Wembley Stadium, for example. So, that's just a tiny little sort of how it happened. But, and I think hospitality in particular, there is that, that there's a DNA that comes with that, that spirit of hospitality. And I know many people that have had that experience in life that probably would relate to that listening to this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very high level how it all began.
Amazing.
And I think, too, like when we're challenged, when we're running our own businesses and we do take on projects like writing books and growing a team and serving clients in an area of expertise, one of the things that I've been challenged on by previous mentors is, if something's the path that you're going to take, your dharma, your purpose, your absolute obsession, if you can get up every day and write about it.
Yes, that's right. That's so true.
For
Yeah.
me, that's service, you know, and then I tested that theory about 12 years ago when I left the corporate world, and I'm still here today, and I still get up every day and I love writing about it. So yeah.
I love that. And it's a really good thing for anyone listening to think about, you know, what is it that lights you up and gets you out of bed that you love? And I know, Jax, on my, you know, health journey this year, I've worked nearly every day, and some people will call me crazy, but I love what I do. And it's really reinforced that. But I think don't just look at what you're good at. Look at what lights you up, and that beautiful intersection of stepping into your power.
I love that, Renee. That, you know, if I can expand on that a little more, because I've been, you know, sort of cheerleading on the sidelines this year, watching you with that particular part of your health journey and seeing how your purpose and work has really been part of your story in a really positive way. And I think, you know, service for me, and this is there's a really interesting pull for service, because whatever you do in service, whether you're in the front line or you're leading in service or whatever industry or sector, and this is why I love the topic so much, I think it's a vehicle that really it challenges you each day. Like there are days when we don't feel like it. There are days when we are low vibing or we don't have the energy. But when we're put in a role of we're here to serve a human being with whatever product or offering it is, we have to reach in and find something a little bit of ourselves, dig a bit deeper.
You do, yeah.
And I think that's the thing I love about service, is that it's constantly, for me, it's a growth vehicle, and it shows me parts of me that I know as humans we're very resilient, and we have magic, and we have ways of managing energy. You know, we could go into so many different topics right now, but it's a real vehicle for digging deep and doing something that perhaps you didn't think you had in you or could.
Yeah.
But you find that. You find a way. Yeah.
So true. It's almost like keeping purpose on its toes.
Yeah.
You know, like you've got to dig deeper because you are the conduit and connector. You're not sitting in an office with the door shut doing data entry.
Oh.
You've got to step up and be, you know, as we talk about, in heart and head service, to be able to do your job at any level, but especially at an exceptional level. Yeah. So, Jaquie, has there been a time when, you know, you've had really exceptional customer service in the last, I'd love to hear this, especially in the last few years post-pandemic. What's been an example and what made it memorable?
You know, for me, a moment of wow or a moment of standout is often two things. It's often a surprise, so it is an unexpected positive surprise, and it's often something that is beyond the stereotypical response that you would normally get in that environment or that sequence. And what I love about wows and moments of outstanding service is usually they're quite ordinary moments that human being somehow has made it feel extraordinary. So an example would be, just recently, I'm at 350 Collins Street in Melbourne, and we used to be at the top end at 12 Collins Street, and I used to go to this lovely cafe. I went there all through COVID, supported them, called the People's Cafe, and the owner there, he remembered my name all through 2021, 2022. I wasn't there every day, but, you know, every other day. And then there's been a good, let's call it 12 to 18 months of space where we've moved to the other end of Collins Street, and I've stopped going to that cafe. And literally about 2 weeks ago, I realised that they've opened a second cafe just down the road from us at the end of Collins Street. I walked in there not expecting to see the owner. He hasn't seen me in 12 to 18 months. I walk in and straight away he said, "Great to see you, Jaquie."
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Now, it's so simple. It was such an ordinary moment, but to remember my name and to be sincere and genuine, that's a moment of wow.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sometimes people in businesses or entrepreneurs are listening, or leaders, if they're really trying to find ways of innovating and reimagining their service, and they're thinking about moments of wow, don't be fooled that it needs to cost a lot of money or be a big grand gesture. It's just show me that I matter in that moment, because honestly, Renee, it's pretty rare. And when it happens, my God, does it stand out.
It does. I love that. And I'm sure people listening will resonate with that. And I think you're right. It's especially back in the workplace, like, even moments of wow could be recognition, could be praise, it could be just making someone feel lit up. Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, I had a few weeks ago a client who had the best, highest performing team in the business, and he said, we've got no budgets. I'll let the team know next year.
Mm.
And you're missing the boat. They would know, but it's capturing the moment in a timely way. And I love what you just said about, it's little, I always say it's the little things, it's those little joy bubbles. It's when you least expect it.
Yeah.
And it costs nothing.
Yeah. And it's also, and I'm sure we'll go here at some point about the humanness of service. But for me, a wow typically is a gesture by a human being that they had to put some time or some thoughtfulness or consideration into. Like, remember my name is a very human thing. To receive a handwritten card from someone is a very thoughtful, considerate thing. And these things they're human, it's stuff that doesn't need to be automated, or, it's the gesture. And I think there's a word that I would love to introduce into this conversation today, which is that usually moments of wow have an undertone of generosity to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the essence of this, that people feel that you're being generous with your time, or you're being generous with your attention, or you're being generous with your human spirit. And let's face it, we all know how precious time is. So when someone is giving you that through a vehicle of service, I think we value it more than we ever have.
I agree with that. I agree with it. And time is the thing, the currency that everyone is craving or missing, and creating the space. I thought of you on the weekend. I had a bit of a staycation in at a really nice hotel in the city with Mum, and they were just, from the moment, I just did a testimonial for them last night, from the moment we walked in until we left, I felt like a princess.
How good.
Everything, nothing was a problem. Just they went over and above, even like they parked the car and said, actually, you meant to get the car at 11 in the morning, but you can get it as long as you get it by 5. Things like that. And not getting out much these days. It meant so I'd go back there, and it meant, and I'm happy to shout out, it was Western. They were amazing.
Yeah. But also what I love is that you, and I know you do this because you're a woman of your word, you doing a testimonial, even that, like, if I was to sort of throw rocks at this topic around service at the moment, I think we as society all have a role to play in making it better.
Yeah.
And we customers have a role to play when there is an exceptional experience or an exceptional human. Just take 5 minutes to do what Renee does, write a review, do it, because it actually really does matter. And I think the more we do this, we lift the benchmark of service in our society. We have to play a role here too. So I just love that you're going to do that testimonial, because
well, I did it this morning, and it took me 5 minutes. Like, I literally parked the car and did it. And I think something you just said, customers, we are all customers.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's a movement that I think now, and I want to talk to you about this, there's a skill shortage that's here by, 2030, it's going to be at next level. I'm a big believer in ramping up EQ to overcome this AI. I think AI is great to a certain extent. If listeners are listening to this now, whether they're leading a team or for their own role, life or business, what would you tell them as far as, what are the 3, I know there's a lot, but three pivotal sort of character traits they really should be, going deep with to build that human connectedness?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think, even sometimes when I go down rabbit holes with the research around where the future of workplace is sort of heading, sometimes I even go, really? Is that really going to happen? But I think what I've really started to see and understand is that the speed of which technology is happening, particularly AI, I think we need to really get serious about preparing for workplace changes. And only just yesterday, a client meeting I was having, they're planning for 5 years from now, and they know that their whole capability framework and matrix is going to be very different.
Yeah.
So I think the first frame I would give listeners is pull back and look at your business and the moments, the customer journey through a lens of if more of the human touch right now was done by technology, and that meant that the humans in our business were freed up to do more what, ... And the more what could be more time spent on the floor with their teams, metaphorically speaking, more time spent with customers. Like, what exactly are they going to be adding value to if they've got more time than they do now? Because technology is doing some of the tasks and activities that they no longer need to do. So, for example, there's a manager in a bike shop down the road in Burke Street, and he was telling me that it takes him approximately 8 hours to do his roster, where he looks at, fair hours of work and people's availability and people's experience. And he says, and now within a matter of minutes, that roster is populated by AI. And he said, so I've now pretty much got a whole day's work back for me to go and spend on the shop floor. So that would be my first question. And then I think if we be a bit more generic, the emotional reasoning and the social reasoning that certainly AI is doing its best to develop and enable machines to do, we need to be really good at that stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
And really, we need to be really good at that human stuff. So if we want our people to be able to be good at emotional and social reasoning, then we need to be providing them education on, scenarios, planning, get them to walk and talk through subjective, typical customer scenarios so they can actually, flex their skills and their muscles on the spot with how would they problem solve, how would they deal with conflict.
Real life scenario, case studies where
absolutely. And I think from an emotional reasoning perspective, something we do a lot in our business at ServiceQ, and I know you and I, Renee, we talk a lot about this in our personal lives, is for us to be able to manage some of the big, strong emotions that sometimes come from customers. First, we need to be able to manage our own emotions well first. So those of us who have got a strong emotional fitness and agility, and we're able to notice when we're having a strong reaction and be able to move through that emotion and rise, like I was talking earlier on, rise above it because we're professionals and there's a human in front of us. That's a very important future skill, and that will help you read and connect and empathise with customers a lot quicker.
Yeah. No, I love that, Jaquie. There's so much. We might have to have a part 2 and 3. There's so many gems there, but I think I love what you said, get the mundane stuff automated, but what are you filling the rest of that time with? And is it helping you be in service at a deeper level and a more effective level with your team, with your frontline? So, Jax, the book. Now, I've read this book and it's amazing. Tell us about the future of service is 5D, just a sort of overview for those listening.
So 5D stands for 5 dimensions. During all of the lockdowns and all of the craziness that we experienced during 2021 to 2023, more or less, I could sense that with AI speeding up and the hangover of what came with the pandemic, that things had shifted, particularly around the way we were treating each other. And so for me, 5D really was, I wanted to write the case for why
Yeah.
Humans need to be great at the human stuff. Just what we were talking about 2 moments ago, because technology is featuring so much more in our lives these days. And I felt like I needed to be the person to write that. It was kind of a calling to get that book out. It wasn't really planned. It was, sometimes they creep up on you, Renee, and you're like, I've got to write this.
I do. I was the same with my last book.
Yeah.
I channeled that book, like with this.
Yeah. And it was a real, like, it took me kind of experience. So 5D represented, when I started studying sort of the layers of the multi-layers of the human being, and looking at some great spiritual teachers like Deepak and psychologists, and even from a science lens, I wanted to anchor the book around reminding people that we are multidimensional, and that we are not just bodies carrying brains, but we have hearts. We are social beings that need to feel connected to each other. And we also are spiritual beings that have a need for meaning and significance. Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, so now how do I write that book and make it meaningful and significant for leaders?
Yeah.
And so really the 5 dimensions are, think of Maslow's hierarchy. There is a hierarchy in taking care of people. There is a hierarchy in taking care of your teams and your customers. And so those 5 dimensions are the physical dimension, the cognitive dimension, the emotional dimension, the social dimension, the spiritual dimension. And really it's one big framework to show leaders, here is how you create the conditions for your teams to thrive in an era, a digital era, and a framework for each of those dimensions for leaders to go and apply, practice, and do.
I love it. It's in line with life. We're so in tune. If you were to give to go from, say, the physical to the spiritual, and we know it's a journey, what's an example of each? Are you happy to share?
Sure.
Obviously.
So the physical dimension is sort of looking at it twofold. It's saying get your house in order. So, like if you're going to make a promise to people in this era, you need to actually have the foundations right, whether it's your shop window, your website, but also your physical body. So the physical dimension starts to tap into the fact that we have a body. It's a vehicle to do things that no machines can do. We can sense, we have intuition, we can smell, we can taste, touch. How well are we bringing those senses into our experiences with humans? So there's a big well-being pillar in the physical about, we want to be served by people who are well. And who are in touch with their bodies. So for that physical dimension, I use the metaphor of, like, how do you move a bit like a ninja, where you're really, in the service realm, you're really you're very aware of every move and your non-verbal cues, the way you communicate with this amazing body that we've been given.
Yeah.
The cognitive dimension is all around decision making and innovating. So the cognitive dimension is looking at how do we make decisions when it comes to the human to human stuff, and how well are you as leaders empowering your teams to make decisions on the spot, but also how do you encourage innovation? And so we kind of unpack some different frameworks around the cognitive dimension, and looking at an example we spoke about before was looking at things like future scenarios and doing simulations where you start thinking about all the types of things that could go, upside down or sideways. The emotional dimension is where we go deeper on EQ, and we look at how well do you understand your own emotions and how well do you connect with the customers. And so where we go there is very much around self-regulation at a much deeper level. But we also get an example of the emotional dimension is getting leaders to look at how well are they giving feedback to their teams.
So important.
For the view to help develop some of their blind spots and their own emotions, like basically inspire emotional intelligence in their teams. So there's a whole lot of work around that. The social dimension is where we connect it to people's values and what they feel connected to. So if you're listening and you're part of an organization, this is the dimension where we really tap into how do you align individuals to company values and build on that. And we go deep on values-based leadership in that particular dimension. And we also just talk about, just at a simple human to human level, like, we are wired for connection, and, customers want to feel that they have a sense of belonging to your brand or your business if you're trying to promote loyalty, which most people are. And so, yeah, we go a bit deeper into what social connection is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
And then the fifth dimension, the spiritual dimension, is where we deconstruct how well leaders communicate and how well they talk about their vision, whether it's their vision for this day or their vision for a project or the vision for the business, and how well they connect their teams to something bigger than them. And then from a service perspective, the spiritual dimension is reminding employees that a customer might come to you to buy a new dress,
yeah,
which is the expressed need of what they want, but there's always an unexpressed need. And so those of you who do service best, you really tap into seeing that human being and really listening to them, making them feel like they matter, not just for what they're about to purchase, but because there's something more about this dress that they want to buy that's making them feel different, So
yeah,
that's my favorite dimension, the spiritual dimension, because I think that's kind of like it's the unseen stuff that happens in service. It's intangible, but it's the stuff that makes us want to go back.
And it's the connected piece to me. It's that going from suppression to expressing why you're there, because you're right, you could be buying a dress for something special, and yes, the dress is this and it's that, but it's
getting
to know people at a more human level. And I think, I don't know about you, Jaquie, but I'm seeing a lot, like globally with clients at the moment, around the emotional intelligence piece. They're tending to feel they're reading everyone well, but they're just not reading themselves first and managing that. And I always liken it, I've done a lot in construction, so I always go to construction, but to a roof plumber that has a sign out the front and his roof's hanging off. It's that same sort of thing. You would not trust that person. You wouldn't go to that person. So look after your own. Basically, it's looking after your own, knowing your own backyard and managing that before you can really be in service to yourself and others.
And I think, if you were to say, like, what does 5D what's the flavor of 5D service leadership? What does it taste like? It's a lot slower.
Yeah.
It's a very feminine energy, graceful framework. It's not suggesting that the way we've been conditioned in the workplace and the way we've been conditioned as leaders since the industrial age is wrong. It's just suggesting that we're evolving, and as leaders, we need to slow down. We need to reflect more. We need to take time to get to know ourselves at a deeper level, to your point, so that we are not only creating conditions for people, but we're embodying
what we're doing. And it goes back to my whole thing's limitless leadership, which people go, what is that? They're leaders that learn, unlearn, relearn, and evolve. That's And you're right, it's not a fast, it could be a daily thing you do differently, but more of a deeper, it's a personal development journey.
Yeah, it is.
And I think, look, it's amazing, all the work you're doing and the difference you're making. I wanted to ask, I have a thing around the gift mindset. So unwrapping the gifts in challenges and in positive situations and people. And I'd love to ask you, and I know through your career we've known each other, but what would be one of the biggest gifts or lessons you've learned that has really, I guess, reinforced the trajectory that you're on now?
Oh, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on lessons learned of late, because I've had a year where I've had a few harder lessons. It's hurt more. It's been more painful.
Yeah.
And they're always the ones you tend to remember, right? The ones that hopefully you don't repeat as a mistake or and so I was just chatting about this the other day with someone, but it is, for me, that I believe my lesson, full stop, for this lifetime is self-love.
Yeah.
And it looks differently at different phases of my life in terms of how I interpret that now to how I did 2 or 3 years ago to probably how I will in a few years when I'm 50. But I do think it's what underpins all of my lessons is, you know, a sort of a flavor of self-love at the moment that I'm working with is this idea of self-consideration.
Yeah.
So, which is more than self-care. You know, self-care for me, I think I've really mastered over the last decade in terms of scheduling rest and scheduling things to look after my body and my health and my well-being, and really strong practices, rituals around meditation and yoga, and all that's wonderful. But there are some things that I still, because I'm so attention out, and this is probably a nice full circle back to service, and I do tend to put others' needs first. There's a new learning coming through, Renee, for me around how am I considering myself when I make decisions, and learning to be much better with things like boundaries, learning to be much better, learning to be much better at making I statements like I need or I want. And I know this might sound odd if you're presenting as a confident CEO, business owner like I do, but I'm going to be honest, these are things that still can really be hard learnings for me. So I think to be really vulnerable and to give you an honest response, I would say self-love is the meta frame of this lifetime for me. And right now, the flavor of that is less violent talking and self-criticism and kindness and self-consideration for myself.
Love it. Switching off the DJ in your head to another side. That's what I call it.
I love DJs.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, I didn't even mean it.
Oh.
Thanks for sharing that, Jack, because I agree. You know, self-care is sort of the outer bit, but the self-consideration is taking it to another level. And I resonate with what you're saying. And someone said recently to me, Renee, you love the ocean, you love to surf. And I was thinking, where's this going? And then they said, how do the waves work? And I go, they go out. And they go, yeah, but they've got a tape to come back to go out again. And all you're doing is that, because I find it hard to ask for help or say no. And I think it's something, especially in what we do, you know, our what lights us up. But it's also, there's a fine line there as well.
Yeah, and I think just learning for myself when I'm over-indexing and if I'm out of balance, normally if I'm feeling wobbly in a day or a week or a month, all I need to do is just take a moment, whether it's a journal or, you know, whether I'm sitting with myself in silence, which is something I love.
Yeah.
And typically all roads lead back to the same place, which is we need to bring in a little bit of self-compassion here, a little bit of self-love. How am I treating myself? And when we clean that up and when I get back aligned within me, then the external world starts to feel balanced again.
I love it. I love it. Kristen Nerf says something like, you know, if there's a knock at the door, invite self-compassion in.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's it.
It's should be a given, but it isn't always. So if you're listening to this, you know, taking the time, self-reflection is not indulgent, you know, whether it's, everyone's different. I've always been a journaler, hundreds of journals. This year, I can't journal.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just all in here and it's externalizing. And, you know, my journey is with my mentor at the moment, I guess. It sounds a bit out there.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that.
I think and the whole self-consideration, self-compassion is be gentle with yourself. If you're saying, why aren't you compassionate? Why aren't you're just going to go further backwards.
Yeah.
So it's something you said the other day about that two-way, you know, asking and really being in stillness and creating a space, but listening what you feel and what you hear or whatever it is for you.
And this is, if you bring it back to 5D and even service in general, and if we want to even connect it to technology, like there's so many synchronicities here. We humans are so magical and we have so much wisdom, don't we? And And wisdom is not it's not knowledge. It's wisdom is so much more powerful than knowledge, and yet we don't create the space and the silence and the time to tap into that wisdom because we're just filling our days and our brains with stuff.
Yeah.
My best ideas come on vacation. My best ideas come in the silence. My best decisions happen when I'm doing nothing, always. And this is the very essence of what 5D is, to trust that when we slow down, when we create space, when we actually reflect, when we actually tune in, what you were saying before, be our own mentor, and then your leadership just goes, it soars.
Yeah. Instead of overthinking it. And I love you've used the word, if it's feeling into it.
Yeah.
It's feeling into it. Jax, if you think of who's a leader you admire and why? Who's someone, can be anybody, but like who's someone you admire and why?
Okay, I got two responses to this. This is random. You know, if you asked me this a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have said it, but it's random. Okay, so in my 20s and 30s, my worldview and perspective back then, I had a female executive boss who was my leader, and I admired her so much. And I think she taught me some really good leadership skills that worked back then.
Yeah.
And, you know, and for example, you know, she taught me the art of stakeholder management. She taught me the art of over communication. She taught me the art of, you know, over delivering and under promising. You know, like really good influencing skills that in any context as a leader you kind of just need. So I loved her for that, and that wouldn't work for me now, because I've changed. Yeah. So now this is going to be super random. I'm currently studying at the moment the story of Coco Chanel.
Yeah.
Because I'm working with the brand Chanel next month, and I'm trying to sort of get into the founder's mindset a bit more, and I'm listening to all the books and watching the movies, and I am fully fangirling her. I love her.
Amazing.
Amazing story. And I think the two things that stood out for me was because of her story as an orphan and how she got to where she was during the World War I and World War II, and the empire that she's built to this day, which is still a privately owned business, I might add. Her entrepreneurship was based on a fierce drive of working hard.
Yeah.
And Renee, I am unapologetically a bit of a workaholic. And I say that, this is probably the first time I've ever said that publicly, and I want to do that with you on your beautiful show, because I love what you stand for. But if you're ambitious, there's a lot of good things that come with ambition. And I think her story has just showed me, like, own it. Like, if that's who you are, own it and stop shaming away from it. And that's been a bit of my story. But the second thing that I think as a leader that she demonstrated was her leadership connects very strongly to her values, and my highest value is freedom, and so is Coco Chanel's. Well, so that's what they say in all the stories. And I just think, you know, when you're a leader who unashamedly knows who they are and what they stand for, and enjoys a bit of drive and ambition and hard work, they're the kind of people I like to learn from at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. It's sticking to your guns and being true to who you are. And I think the leaders of the past, I don't think, you know, and I don't like to generalize, but go back to the 90s, they didn't challenge the status quo. They were leadership teams. And I think now, you know, people want real, people want raw. And you see it, Jax, like, I don't know how many times we've had people in a room, and we do a lot around curiosity to drive creativity, which drives innovation, and collaboration. And someone will go, "Oh, Renee, I just don't feel," and I go, "Just blurt it out." And as soon as they say, you know, the glass should be green, everyone goes, "I was thinking that, and I thought that." Because I tell you what, and you and I know this, there's nothing worse. We're ideas people. And there's been times there's certain ideas I've let go, and then I've seen them somewhere else. And, you know, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, ideas are a living entity.
Yeah.
You feel it, and the next day it's still in your mind, your heart, and you feel it in your stomach. That's when I jump onto things and just
Take action. Yeah.
do them.
I love that.
Yeah, and I love the I haven't read the Coco Chanel books, but I've watched all the movies. My mum's a big fan.
Oh,
Just such, even in this day and age, she'd be seen as a strong woman. But
oh,
back then
oh,
is just amazing.
stories that made, yeah. It's a real privilege to be researching her journey for a current day project that I'm working on. And I'm actually thinking I might go get a piece of artwork and hang it up somewhere, because I think it's a little bit like Wonder Woman, It's like there's a nice sort of archetype for me to sort of look at and think about the resilience. I mean, it was beyond resilient. So
it's like she was brought up with that at a young age, and it comes back. I loved what you said. Part of the 5D service, I guess the content in the program is really around, and I've just totally blanked out what I was going to say then. I've just totally blanked out.
Wonder Woman, 5D, Coco Chanel and 5D.
Oh, no, but owning it, but taking it slowly, bringing in the essence of you and doing it in a relational way, not a transactional way. And that's what I see straight away in customer service. I've always been about, worked in retail, worked in hospitality. And I think these days, and we won't go into it, but in Australia, the restaurant industry is way down. So when people go out, they want a good experience. It's not just about food. And I think about the weekend, Mum and I went out like 5 times. 3 were amazing, 2 were so-so. The food was probably better than the other 3, but the experience wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love this quote that you've come up with. Service is an attention challenge, not a set of procedures. That really hit home for me. Not
and I think it's exactly what you were just saying before about the whole experience over the weekend, because I guarantee you the people that created the best experience for you, those that were extraordinary at what they did, I guarantee you they would have been extraordinarily present.
Yeah, very present. And something I'd love to touch on before we have to pull it in is empathy. So even going through, I can actually say I've been through a big healthcare system this year. I've probably had 80 touch points minimum. And everyone, they're short-staffed in healthcare. They're doing the best they can. Most have been amazing. But the other day there was a medical thing I had to go to with no human interaction, right? So swipe card, locker opens, get change. But when I left, the receptionist actually came out and she was walking past me and she just touched me and she said, "You always look so beautiful. You're always so happy." But she looked me right in the eye, and I reckon it was 2 seconds. And I was so happy. And now when I go in and it's the small little, just that little bit of, she knows what I'm going through. She got it. So how can people bring more empathy in, full stop, lives in and out of work?
Well, I reckon part of the secret is what we were discussing earlier on about empathy for yourself.
Yeah.
Compassion and empathy, they sort of live in a similar family, but to be able to be empathetic with another human being, first there's got to be a level of care. And I have a belief, Renee, that most people care.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But sometimes we get caught in our minds and we forget. And I think what we're experiencing a lot on the planet at the moment that is disguised as poor, average, mediocre interrelational experiences or human-to-human service experiences, that we're being served by people that are stuck in their heads.
Yeah.
They're not present. They're not paying attention. And so how are they ever going to access a skill like empathy if they're not even here?
Yeah, that's right.
And So yeah, I often kind of go into defense a little bit for service professionals on this topic, because a lot of people kind of want to go, you know what, no, people don't care like they used to, and you can't teach people to care. And I go, no, stop. I call BS on that.
Yeah,
Actually,
totally.
I think most people do care. I think that we're in a world and an era, and it's the book I wrote this year, where it's really hard for us to be in the moment. It's hard for us to be present. It's hard for us to mindfully move through the day, let alone mindfully serve someone, because there's just so much stimulation and distraction and addiction,
Yeah.
you know. And so there's a connection here with being present and empathetic. And the sequence is first, be here, be in
Yeah.
the moment, like
All here.
be all here, like that lady was who
Mm.
came in very briefly. That the
Yeah.
action, the behavior was she touched you on the shoulder, but first she needed to pay attention and to notice that you were there. And I don't say that lightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when she noticed it, she then needed to be in that moment a little bit empty of herself and go, you know what? There's another human being, and I'm going to take a few seconds to just show her that I see her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she could never have done that if she first wasn't even paying attention to her surroundings and who was there. And so a lot of my curriculum and the work that my business teach is around mindfulness and self-regulation and being in your body and your breath, because all these fabulous tools like empathy and asking great questions, we can't even access that toolkit when we're not here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be still. And I think that the whole word empathy comes from a German word meaning to feel in. You can't feel if you're not there. If you're
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, Jax, for anyone listening right now, if they want to take their service to a deeper level and just want to bring one little habit in today, what would you say? I know there's a lot and they need to read the book, but
Yeah, read the book. Look, I would say to anyone, service is an inside job. So
yeah,
if you work on your own as an entrepreneur, the question I would be asking is, how well are you serving you?
yeah,
And believe that there's a true reaction and reflection of how you treat others from that lens. And if you're on this show and listening to Renee's podcast and you're a leader of teams, then the question I would encourage you to ask is, how well am I serving my team?
Yeah, beautiful.
And know that those two questions will immediately give you some wisdom,
yeah,
around maybe where you need to focus first. And I guarantee the people that are on the receiving end of that will feel it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's the old Marianne, the whole people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Jax, before we finish up, some quick trivia. What is your favorite word? So I should have been a game coach.
Love.
Love, yeah. The word love, doesn't matter who says it, including you especially, people smile.
Yeah. Oh, I say it so often. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love this. Love, 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 love.
Yeah, love it. Love. There you go. Didn't mean that. What sound or noise do you love? See, look at my questions. There's love everywhere.
What sound?
Or noise, like, do you love?
Silence. I love silence. And I'm happy if way, 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 way in the distance there might be a sound of some ocean or birds tweeting or the wind in the trees. But I could sit in silence all day. I crave it. I live in a very busy, noisy city. I'm with people all day.
Yeah,
I have a very full social life, and when I get silence, I just go, oh, how
have
good
you
is it?
always loved silence? Or
No.
has it been something as you've become more mature?
Oh,
Is there?
sure. No, I definitely have not always loved silence. I would say the last decade, I've developed a love for silence, with some deep experiences and practices that, have shown me the richness of what sits in silence.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
One last meal, what would it be?
Oh my God. So the best meal I've ever had, I would want to basically transport that to me, which was a giant, are they called pyro? What are those big dishes? Those glass dishes?
Pyrex.
Pyrex. Imagine a giant Pyrex just for me, one person, of fresh lobster pasta baked in the oven by a Greek yaya, a beautiful glass of red wine, and a little bit of dark chocolate on the side, please.
I love that.
Spare.
Anything with lobster. If I came back as a lobster, I'd eat myself. I just love lobster. So, Jess, if you had a different profession other than what you're doing now, what would it be?
I think it'd still be on a stage of some sort.
Yeah.
Probably mixing some beat.
That's awesome. I'll do the dancing on the side.
I love music. I'd love to learn how to be a DJ. Probably will do it later in life at some point. Side hustle.
We should do one of, they have like little sessions. We should go.
I love that.
Jamming.
I want to learn old school, like how to actually mix a song in as another one, you know?
Sort of, yeah. I'm sort of hearing, you know, service. Hey, Jack, it's been awesome having you on the show. I wanted to say thank you so much for being so open, so honest, and just sharing so much.
Always.
How do people find you?
Just check us out at serviceq.co, servicq.co, or check me out on LinkedIn, and I will always reply to you if you DM. The spelling of my name, just make sure you don't put a C in it. So it's Jaquie with no C. I'd love to hear from anyone that's been on your show, Renee, because I learn a lot from comments and conversations. So really encourage that.
Definitely. And we'll have all the links to everything, Jax, for everyone in the show notes. Yeah. And where can people get your book? The Future.
Yep, Amazon, or a good bookstore, or again, if you go to our website, we can direct you there and get a copy out to you. So whatever's easy for people.
Amazing. Thanks so much again for being on the show.
Thank you, beautiful. Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating space for such a gorgeous conversation.
Pleasure. And let us know your feedback on the show. Any questions, reach out to Jaquie. And we look forward to seeing or hoping you tune in on the next podcast. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast. So you don't miss an episode, make sure you follow the show in your favorite podcast app. Feel free to share this podcast with your family, friends, and work colleagues. If you're enjoying the show, find out more on what we do at RG Dynamics at www.reneegiarrusso.com. Until next time, be limitless.